on the contracts. Now, I don't think you can use Tornado Cash yet. I'm not 100% sure about this. Someone may correct me if you can. If you can use it. I don't want to say that you can use it if you can't, but yeah, those contracts have been removed off of the sanctions list here. But what hasn't happened is that the charges against Roman Storm have not been dropped yet, so he's still fighting his case, and same with Alexei Pertsev. They're still fighting their cases, and their charges have not been dropped, but I do hope this is a step in the right direction for those charges to be dropped for both Roman and Alexei. Yeah. Now, I put my own tweet out regarding this where I basically looked back on the history of these sanctions, right? Essentially, as I said, they happened in August of 2022, and then what that really did was light a fire under the Ethereum ecosystem's ass that we need to be better with our censorship resistance. In saying that, we've still had access to Tornado Cash because our censorship resistance on the network is actually really good. You had delayed inclusion, where essentially you may not get your transaction included in a block, or the block after that, or the block after that, but you will, with high certainty, get your transaction included relatively quickly. As I said, delayed inclusion, but still relatively quickly there. Now, of course, this is fine for something like Tornado Cash, which isn't block sensitive, it's not time sensitive. But when it comes to other things like Uniswap trades, for example, or AMM trades, for example, money markets, liquidations, making sure that you can top up your collateral, stuff like that, that's all very sensitive. So if we were to live in a world one day where those things were being censored, that would be really bad, obviously, for the network. We can't have delayed inclusion for stuff like that because, I mean, for obvious reasons, but also there's a lot of insider games that can happen there. So, as I said, we had a fire lit under our asses to improve the censorship resistance on the network, and that has resulted in something called Fossil, which is a implementation of inclusion lists that I've been covering for the last couple of years on the Refuel. That seems like the EIP that's going to make it into Glamsterdam, which is the update after Fusaka, which is the update after Pectra, and EPBS as well. So it try and propose a builder separation because of the MEV boost pipeline and because of all the censorship that happened there. We realized we needed to make sure that we can enshrine some of that to hopefully make sure this stuff doesn't happen. So really, all these OFAC sanctions did, honestly, was I don't think it really deterred places like North Korea from getting access to funds, because as you guys know, recently they were able to hack $1.5 billion worth of funds from Bybit, and they didn't use Tornado Cash, I believe, to watch this, or they could, because they don't care about the sanctions. They don't care about getting in trouble from using a sanctioned contract. So all it really did was punish good and honest actors, and also by doing this, OFAC spurred on this improvement in censorship resistance on Ethereum. So they really just played themselves in the end. Like I think I mentioned this before on the Refuel, but they ended up playing themselves, because now we have, in the next year with Fossil, we're going to have such incredibly tight censorship resistance on the Ethereum network, where I believe I've covered it before, where I think that with Fossil, even if 90% of the network was censoring you, you'd still be able to get your transaction in the next slot. I believe it was 90%. It might be a little bit lower than that, but that was insane to me, because it's like, holy shit, like that's 90% of validators, guys, as well. Like that was crazy to me, because if 90% of validators are censoring you, or I guess like not just validators, obviously there's the whole MEV boost pipeline, but if 90% of the network, let's just say the network was censoring you today, then you have a 10% chance per slot to get your transaction included. So obviously it's going to get included. It's an okay chance, not a high chance, but it's an okay chance. But as I mentioned before, this only works for non-time sensitive stuff. For anything time sensitive, this doesn't work. You can't have a 1 in 10 chance of getting your transaction included. When you want to, especially when it's things like liquidations and Oracle updates, stuff like that, right? That's the kind of worst case scenario that we're looking at there. So as I said, great to see that the sanctions were removed off of Tornado Cash contracts, yeah, but at the same time, guys, like, it was such a stupid exercise in my mind. I just don't think it ever should have happened, but I'm glad to see that that is behind us. Alright, moving on to some core dev updates. So as you guys know, there was a new testnet spun up called Hoodie to replace the whole Eshki testnet, which as far as I know is dead now. It died so that Hoodie could live. So Hoodie is going to be a testnet for stakers to test everything that they want to. And actually, sorry, I'm reading here, whole Eshki is going to be maintained until September. It still works to test everything except for validator exit. So it still lives, but it is going to be sunset in September, I believe. But Hoodie is the main
testnet now to test everything regarding staking. So if that applies to you, you should definitely go check out Hoodie here, and you can see that there's a nice summary of testnets and their purposes here. And there's also going to be a Sepolia replacement coming in March of 2026, so tentatively scheduled for there. So we're going to basically have, you know, by March 2026, 2 testnets that Holeshki and Sepolia retired, and then Hoodie and a Sepolia replacement there. So testnets evolve, guys. This is the whole point of testnets. It's not mainnet. Obviously, we don't want what happened on Holeshki to ever happen on mainnet. It can't happen in the same way, but we did learn a lot about the fact that what happens if we lose finality for a long time, or what happens when the minority is on the right fork and the majority is on the wrong fork. Turns out bad things happen. It's really hard to recover from. It requires a lot of social coordination. It's just not a good thing. So it's good that we learned it on the testnet, obviously, and I'm glad that we kind of I did that there. So yeah, cool to see a new testnet live there. As I said, you can go check it out if it applies to you, if you want to test staking related things there. Alright, so there is a brand new Beam roadmap website. So as you guys know, the Beam chain is going to get renamed because the Beam thing in crypto is trademarked. So it's not going to be called the Beam chain, but you guys know all about the Beam chain. It's this, I guess, like a massive upgrade to the Ethereum consensus layer that Justin Drake spoke about back at DevCon and at the Bankless Summit. It is being developed alongside pretty much like everything else in the Ethereum ecosystem, with a vision to complete it, you know, as soon as possible. There was that timeline given of like 4 to 5 years from last year, but I think things are moving faster than that, honestly. From the amount of teams that I know that are involved with this, from you know, Justin pushing really hard on this, making sure that they can push it as fast as possible, I am very confident that we could see this much faster than 4 to 5 years. But at the same time, it's not exactly something that I guess is critical. Like, you guys know about my kind of prioritization around upgrades. Critical stuff is blobs, right? Scaling, that's critical because market share is critical, because without market share, without Ethereum actually dominating, everything else that we're doing is pretty much pointless, right? So obviously I believe, and not everyone agrees with this, but I do believe that scaling is the most critical thing, both with blobs and the L1 gas limit. But then all these other things actually play into that as well, right? Like even the Beam chain plays into it with some of the ZK stuff that it's doing. Obviously stuff with fast finality that plays into it too. I spoke about 3-slot finality on the last episode or the episode before that. So it's all kind of coming together. But when we're talking about like prioritizing the most critical things, PDAS and a blob count increases generally. Obviously we can do that like today or like very soon.